I'm Nidhi Agarwal. I'm the CEO founder of Kaaryah.com. Kaaryah is the first of its kind brand for Western non-casual wear for Indian women. We're focused on providing the best possible fit with our 18 different sizes. Before Kaaryah, I was the director of strategy at Honeywell India, where I helped them launch their space and missiles business. Before which, I was a strategy consultant with Bain & Company, where I participated in B2C new marketing cases across telecom, alcohol, biomed devices, and so on and so forth. I joined Bain after having graduated from the Kellogg School of Management in 2008. Before Kellogg, when Airtel was a smaller company and opportunities were far larger, I was part of the new product development team over there and I helped craft the first ever mobile commerce product in India. Before which, I was actually a chartered accountant. So I worked with KPMG and I helped them do statutory audits across B2C manufacturing companies like Pepsi, Ocean, and Carve. Now you can only imagine my confusion when I was asked to talk about carving my own future. Did any of what I said sound like a plan to you? It really wasn't, right? Should you have asked me 5 years back if I was going to be an entrepreneur, I would have looked at you and said, there's no chance. But for the last 4 years, I've happily been an entrepreneur, and really, what it has been is not really a plan, but a journey. There were two things that were very, very evident to me as I set out on my career journey. One, that independence was not an option, interdependence may as well be. And two, that I would never take anything for granted, neither would I be ever taken for granted, right? So when I step back and I look at the journey that I've taken over the last 15, 16 years, there are three things that come out very, very clearly. Number one, focus. Number two, fearlessness. This, to my mind, is actually 95% of my journey. It is 95% of what I have experienced and is genuinely an absolute direct outcome of the amount of effort that we were able to put in, either as myself or as a team. But the other 5% that genuinely makes this 95% a whole, complete 100% is luck, which to my mind is a matter of time. So when we talk of focus, it would naturally imply that you would know what you wanted to do. But let's understand a few things about this, right? Once you understand, once you're convinced about what it is that you want to do, there is a very large, bigger, harder task at hand, which is the ability to say no. So imagine 3 months, 4 months into funding, a person comes along and tells you, I'll fill your bank, but only with two conditions. Number one, that you will not just talk women's wear, and number two, you will not talk about fit. That is when you stand back and you say, hey, as a brand, that's what I committed myself to. I know what I wanted to do in Kaaryah, for Kaaryah as a brand, and these two conditions don't really meet it. So guess what? We actually sat back 3 months in and let that opportunity pass. I guess what I'm really trying to say over here is that once you know what you want to do, it's really not very easy to even sit back and say no to the stuff you know you do not want to do. Now, everybody is not that lucky, right? We all didn't start off understanding what it is that we wanted to achieve or do in life, and we have to actually arrive at it. Which is why it is very important to have those experiences, those failures, which will help you understand what it is that you do not want to do, right? And as we go through these experiences or these failures, it is absolutely critical to success to cultivate and to have and surround yourself with those mentors, those advisors, those trusted friends who will either tap you on your head and tell you, listen, you're failing, stop doing this now. Listen, you're unhappy, do not do this. And listen, there is a better way of doing this, can you please get up and smell the roses? And the same set of people are actually the people who will get up, dust you when you've fallen, and set you right back on your path. So very interestingly, 2-3 months into having Kaaryah roll its first go-to-market channel where we thought we would go all trunk shows, we tried to prove revenue, we tried to scale, but none of that is actually showing up in our revenue numbers. I remember a consistent advisor made the board meetings where my board was trying to indicate a certain direction, and clearly, just given how focused we were to making it happen, I wasn't paying attention. So I remember one Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, I'm sure my mentor who called me was equally frustrated. He called me and he said, Nidhi, get up, smell the roses. This is failing. This is not going to be scalable. And It took a lot of courage for me to do that, but it also meant that I gave my mentors, my friends, my advisors that space, whether it was physical, emotional, or even mental, to participate in my decision-making process. That was one day, and since that day, all of last year, since we changed the entire go-to-market strategy, we've grown 15 to 20% month on month without any marketing spend. So I guess when I speak about mentors and taking these experiments or doing these little researches which will help you arrive at what you do not want to do, since you are on your way to arriving at what you want to do, failure is inevitable. I very much remember my first job as a statutory auditor at TEDxIIMC. I was so bad at that job, I don't even know why they kept me there for 2 years, right? I was so bad at my job that I thought I was kept there only such that the rest of the bottom 10% and the 90% on top of that could look good, right? That's how bad I was. But can you only imagine what would have happened should I have succeeded as a statutory auditor? I would never have taken my liking for data and number analytics to a different application which was marketing analytics within Bharti and then customer behavior analytics, which is what I learned at Kaaryah. So I guess what I'm really trying to say here to summarize is that failures, if not as important, are far more important than opportunities. And of course, as you take these little experiments, as you go down that path, risk is inevitable. I certainly believe that each day is a gift and not a given right. Against the grain should be of life. It should be a way of life. Interestingly, Nickelback also believes it. It's from their song, guys. Very interestingly, when what do you do when you see a problem? Do you sit back and you say, okay, I'm just going to live with this. This is how it is. I accept it. I'm going to live with this problem and make my peace with it. Or are you going to step back and actually ask the question, why? Try and understand why that problem exists. And then perhaps if the problem is understandable or decodable, go ahead and even try to solve it. Right? That ability to ask that question why was how Kaaryah was even conceptualized. I was on my way to the airport and I dropped coffee on myself. I wanted to change my shirt, so I stepped into one of the largest malls in Gurgaon to find the new shirt. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, I was just looking for something very basic. A simple white shirt would do. But 5 shops in, 1.5 hours in, I was not able to get something as basic and as simple as a white shirt. So I sat back and I wondered if I was the only one or if there were other women who faced similar issues. And like a typical strategy consultant, I ran a customer survey, 250 women. A whopping 80% actually identified with the exact same unmet needs. Now, of course, the unmet need was very, very clear to us, but there must be a reason why current apparel manufacturers were not able to meet this need. So we actually sat back and said, what is it about the current system of apparel manufacturing or go-to-market or retail for women's apparel that is mitigating this ability to meet this really large, very apparent unmet need? Now that question alone has actually led to Kaaryah innovating the entire supply chain of apparel manufacturing, which I would actually contend is one of the largest legacy manufacturing processes for a country like India. So I guess what I'm really trying to say here is identifying a problem, genuinely taking it hands-on by saying or asking the question why, will actually lead to a lot of new, innovative, disruptive ways of meeting a very nascent consumer market like India. This ability to solve problems or this ability to ask the question why is not restricted only to Kaaryah's business model, but actually transcends multiple functions, multiple boundaries within Kaaryah. Take, for example, our product. Of course, as a fashion apparel company, fashion for us, design adeptness for us is actually a given. So what is it that we do to solve a customer's problem with our product? We genuinely sit with our customer care service delivery team. We try and understand the kind of questions, kind of problems that customers are facing, either with our product or in general, and try to solve that problem, which is why Kaaryah, whenever it has to introduce a new line of product, will actually sit back and ask, what problem are we really solving? What unmet need is this really satiating? Or is this just a good-looking product? If it is just a good-looking product, it has to have more, because as a brand, We're committed to solving this problem of providing the best possible fit and fashion, not at the compromise of profit. And by the way, if sales are not doing very well, please tell us so that we can go and make sales. So you tell us who you want us to sell to, and we'll make sure they take the product. And you're like, okay, then this is certainly not where I step up and be brave. This is where we come to a conclusion and let them leave the office case. Right? So they start with 10 dabbas, you say can't do 10. By the way, how much is a dabba? And they say 5,000 rupees. Okay then, there's no way I can do 10 dabbas. Can we do one? They're like, we have a reputation to protect. We cannot take any less than 3. So you say, okay, we'll settle at 2. So I guess guys, what I'm really trying to say is that while you take all of these risks, it's equally important to step back and know when to let that risk pass. Clearly we got lucky, it could have gone either ways that day. So talk about luck. I was very, very fortunate growing up in a household which had very, very disparate parents. So my father is an accountant, he's fiercely analytical. My mother is an artist. She's beautifully artistic. So while and of course it's made for really interesting dining table conversations. So while one would talk about the most complicated business problem and how one could approach it to solve it, the other would talk about detailed brush strokes and the impact of light on color. At Kaaryah today, interestingly, we define it as a technology-enabled consumer data analytics company that does fashion. So you see the impact, guys? Very early on and very clearly, we were given the rules with which we could lead our lives and genuinely make decisions. These rules were, never do anything that will make you unhappy or unhealthy. Hard work has no substitute. And by the way, there is no other way of being except being a good human being. You see, guys, I got really lucky. These weren't really constraints. These were enablers. These were things that I had to keep in mind while I pursued whatever it is that I was allowed to pursue. And the third thing, I am from a family where I have one brother, 13 cousins, of these 13 cousins, 10 are actually boys. So you see, we were not raised in a family where girls were different from boys, we were just people growing up together. So when we set out funding and when we started approaching people for investment, it actually shocked us. When we were asked questions like, you're in your 30s, you may start your family soon, is that going to distract you? Why do you even want to do this? You come from a family that is well provided for. You stand back and you say, there's no way you're asking that question of a guy, are you? But then thankfully it was a very interesting and a very well set of balance. While there were people who were asking me these questions which I thought were sincerely funny, there were other people who didn't even think of this as a matter of conversation. They saw track record, they saw business idea, they thought they could put their money into a business that could be a good business, and they gave me money. So I guess guys, if I want to summarize my journey over the last 15 years, which has culminated into what we call Kaaryah today, I would say it is a sum total of the opportunities, whether it is the opportunities that I was given as, let's say, the new market entry strategist at Bain, or for that matter, as the strategy person in Honeywell, but also the opportunity that exists in India being such a nascent consumer market. I'm sure, 5 years down the line, we wouldn't see such a large white space as far as women's western wear is concerned. The failures, we've talked about the 113 pitches over the 365 days. Each one of them has been a huge, immensely large learning experience. Risk-taking, whether it was my ability to take risk or my team's ability to risk it all and join me as well. That is what has formed Kaaryah. The ability to learn. So every failure has not been just left as a failure, it has actually been dissected and analyzed to understand what it is that we're supposed to take away from it. The ability to listen, of course. You listen to investors who are trying to give you feedback and they say no. You listen to your vendors. Certainly listen to your team, because as a good leader, you never tell them what to do. You kind of help them arrive at it after listening to them. And as a brand, it is absolutely critical to success that you listen to your customer and imbibe what it is that they're telling you, whether it is good or bad feedback, and ensure that your brand starts to build affinity with that ability to listen. And luck, of course. Right? So in summary, guys, what I'm going to say is that be focused, be fearless, and luck will take care of itself because it's only you so much for spending your time with me today.